What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Top of the List. This is RB and Dom bringing you another film review. This being the first film that we were able to go back and see in theaters with both of us being vaccinated, fully vaccinated, able to get back into the big screen. And I think we were both pleasantly surprised with our first selection. We went and saw the newest Disney feature film and a long series of Disney live action takes on some of their animated classics, this being Cruella, more of a prequel to the animated great 101 Dalmatians. And like I said, I was very pleasantly surprised with this. Dom, how did you feel about this film?
Dude, I thought you'd never stop talking. I'm just kidding. No, it was great. I really enjoyed this film. Uh, there's a couple things that we have little nitpicks about,
Yeah.
but overall, I really enjoyed this movie. Did you even say that it was Cruella?
Yes.
Okay, I was just making sure. Yeah, going back and seeing this in the theater, the way we kind of rationale this one out is, it's $30 on Disney Plus, right? Doesn't necessarily make sense to spend $30 for us, at least, because the theater here, you and Caitlin had free tickets.
Yep.
And you used your discount for me, so I could get my ticket at a discount.
All three of us $10. So
yeah,
take that, Disney Plus.
Yeah, we beat you, Disney.
Yeah.
But now we realize there's a theater that we get $7 tickets at, near us. So we're going to start going to that theater for some movies as well. So the theater is still a good bargain, and I just felt it was important to say that because a lot of people now that after the pandemic, they're probably going to be thinking, oh well, now after all this time that with movies releasing only on streaming, what's the point of ever going back to a theater? Well, I think it's still a good bargain.
And I mean, you can see the theaters hitting heavily on this marketing too. Now, we went and saw a film at an AMC theater as well as a Cinemark theater.
Yeah,
they're both hitting very big on the, they show the size of a TV screen on the movie screen, saying, you don't want to take in a blockbuster like this, and it really is. I would argue the pageantry too of seeing something on the big screen is a special experience for certain movies, and there are other movies that are fine to watch at home, but I think there's a pageantry, especially of a Disney film, of going and seeing it in the theaters.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. And this one definitely lended itself to being seen in the theater because this film reminded me about one of my favorite theater experiences I've seen in a long time. And thematically, thematically, it was more akin to something like the Joker film with Joaquin Phoenix. And stylistically, it was more akin to something like The Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
And that's what made this film so amazing for me. I thought it was, we haven't given our scores yet, I guess.
We have not. Yeah.
So before we talk about details here, my score is 8 out of 10.
Okay.
It was a great film. 100% would watch it again, without a doubt. Probably when I go home, if my parents haven't seen it yet, we'll either rent it or something else, or maybe we'll go to the theater ourselves again to watch it. But it's definitely worth a watch, time and time again. I think it's a great film. There's something very special about this one as opposed to the other Disney films that have come out recently. I know we were talking about that after this too. Where does it sit amongst the others for you? And what's your score as well?
Yeah, so my score is definitely an 8 out of 10 as well.
Nice.
For many of the same reasons. There are definitely things that I could nitpick on that, keep it from being that 9, 10 realm, but definitely a great film. And definitely one I would enjoy. Same thing, when I see my parents, my dad's a big Disney fan, would watch this with him, and I think he would enjoy it as well. But where it ranks, that's tough for me. And I think that's going to lead into our first commentary on this film, is that this is not necessarily a live action Disney film. I'm a sucker, for example, for the Lion King live action or the Aladdin live action. I'm going to love the Little Mermaid live action because those are the Disney animated films that I grew up with. Even the Beauty and the Beast, when obviously Beauty and the Beast, a much older film, but, grew up watching it on VHS, and to see it done live action on the big screen, I absolutely loved it. This is something completely different. This is an original story. This is a backstory to Cruella de Vil. But something I didn't realize, and maybe you did or did not, is this is not just the backstory of Cruella de Vil, but pretty much every single character in the Disney rendition of 101 Dalmatians. And I did not know that.
Yeah, and it's not strongly connected to that film, but could be.
Well, I almost disagree with that.
I don't think that this isn't a film that you watch it and then you watch 101 Dalmatians and it picks up right where that left off. I don't think that at all. This is a totally different movie than that.
Well, let's put our spoiler alert here.
Well, before that.
Oh, okay.
We didn't get a chance to rank them yet, right? Don't
you
want to talk
how
about
many of them? There are quite a few now.
Oh, there's quite a few, but I'm just saying, is this like, at the top of the list or towards the bottom for you?
Well, I mean, the only thing I think you could compare this to is Maleficent.
Okay.
Because Maleficent is another one of these live action Disney movies. It's a backstory of a villain.
Okay.
And I would say I prefer this to Maleficent for sure. I like the stylistic choice by the director. I love the time period it was set in, and I like the realism of the story. Obviously Maleficent deals with a lot of magic, fantasy, woodland creatures. I liked, what happened in this and the tying in with, the whole, backing story of fashion. I really enjoyed that. I was worried I wouldn't, being someone who doesn't really understand the fashion game necessarily, as you can tell from what I wear when we film, for those of you watching.
Ryan is a fashionista, guys. If you didn't know, if you're on a podcast only, every episode of Top of the List, Ryan wears a full suit and tie, Gucci loafers, right?
And for those of you that are watching, you would know every week I wear a different Menlo College shirt. Go Oaks.
Go Oaks, yeah. I definitely get what you're saying here. What made this one special was it was an original story. Mm-hmm. And I guess what I wanted to say by ranking them is, I've been disappointed on the last few. It's not like they're putting out, it's not, when I say Disney isn't putting out bad movies lately. Disney's been making some decent films. But as far as ones that blew me away, the most recent live action adaptation that I thought really hit it out of the park was Beauty and the Beast with Emma Watson. And I think that was, for me, after I walked out of the theater, I thought, wow, that was an amazing film. It's surely a 9 out of 10 for me. I really enjoyed it a lot. And then, they came out with a few others after that, just didn't live up to par. The Lion King, I walked out extremely disappointed. I thought that we were going to get at least a little bit different of a movie, but it was just a copy and paste.
But I think the same can be said about Beauty and the Beast. And I loved both Beauty and the Beast and Lion King.
But not necessarily, because they actually changed a little bit of the story in the Beauty and the Beast film, the live action one. Some things happen differently.
There is more elaborated on the story. Yes. You are correct there with me. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. But then we get to Aladdin, and that one
disappointed with Aladdin?
I wasn't disappointed with Aladdin.
Okay.
But I've gotten very mixed opinions from it from people I know. Mm-hmm. I know that you said you really enjoyed it.
I think thinking back to them, that's probably my favorite. Not so far.
Okay.
Would be Aladdin, followed by Beauty and the Beast, and then probably Cruella, if you wanted me to rank them.
Right, yeah. I was just wondering if it was that high for you. That's interesting.
Yes, I think Aladdin did it perfectly. Mm-hmm. They kept a lot of the childhood nostalgia that I grew up with. I think, and I know this is a controversial statement, but I think Will Smith, for a very different reason than Robin Williams, hit it out of the park as the genie. Mm-hmm. And I think they did enough to change it. It was, like you said, with Beauty and the Beast, mm-hmm. It told the same story, but there was a different message behind it, and there were different twists and turns that I didn't see coming.
And that's when I walked out of Aladdin.
Yes,
I walked out thinking, yes, that was a very good movie. Mm-hmm. I'd probably give it a 7.5. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah,
but here was my thing.
Yes,
the new songs they added, the parts they expanded upon with Jasmine, mm-hmm. were my favorite parts because that wasn't in the original.
Correct. Yeah.
And I kept saying, wow, they could have done something with that. They could have really made a new movie, and they just didn't because they wanted to please the nostalgia of our fans. That's fine.
Disney, yeah.
That's perfectly fine. And then we get into this film, and I'm wondering, okay, what are we going to do with this one? This one seems like the premise walking into it, I knew it was going to be different, but I didn't know, number one, before we get into spoilers, because I feel like people need to know this before they go to the theater, this is a dark film.
Yes.
And I did not expect that. I did not expect that one bit. This is doesn't show it right there. But yeah, it does.
PG-13.
It's a PG-13 film. Mm-hmm. And that made it all the better. They're not afraid to go dark, but then again, they don't go too dark as to where it loses that Disney feel.
Absolutely.
And for me, that's why I think this is now my number one, besides Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
I still think Beauty and the Beast has that perfect mixing, but this is definitely my runner-up now as far as it goes on top of the list.
This was a very enjoyable film.
So give us our spoiler warning siren.
Wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo.
So there we go, guys. That's our spoiler warning. Let's talk about some details here. And let's start off with the biggest surprise of the film, Emma Thompson. I think she was phenomenal in this film. What do you think, man?
I mean, I wouldn't call it a surprise. I think
I didn't know she was in the film.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I think this is where you and I differ.
Okay.
Is I was really excited about this film. I think you were slightly less enthused. I had watched all the trailers.
Okay.
And I was extremely intrigued because of how dark it looked and knew that it was rated PG-13.
Okay, got it.
Emma Thompson, well, obviously to me, a selling point is Emma Stone. I think Emma Stone is a terrific actress who's shown incredible range from, her comedy films like Easy A to I love her performance in Birdman. I think she just has a fantastic range. I thought, that was a selling point for me. But everything I've seen Emma Thompson in, she's hit it out of the park. She's been incredible. And even in the trailers, I had no idea that Paul Hauser, is that his name? Anyway, he's one of my favorite actors.
Paul. He was a Stingray. Cobra Kai,
Paul Walter Hauser, Stingray. He's also worked with director Craig Gillespie in I, Tonya.
Yep.
I think he's an incredible actor as well. And I had no idea he was in this when he was on the screen for the first time. And it was 10 minutes into the film. I was pleasantly surprised. So overall, an incredible cast, and I think an incredible casting job by our casting director. Let's see if I can find who that is. But yeah, I think an awesome cast. I think everyone hit it out of the park. But let's start, with Emma Thompson. So what stood out about her performance to you?
For me, it feels like, that we talk about these scene-stealing performances.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about scene-stealing performances, I think back to our Jurassic Park review, and we talk about Jeff Goldblum.
Yes.
Jeff Goldblum.
Goldblum.
And every second he's on screen, it is phenomenal. The film reaches that fantastic status. Whenever Emma Thompson's on screen, it just elevates this film to a new level.
Yes.
Whenever she walks in and she enters a scene or she enters a room in this film, you can feel it. And I really like that aspect of it. And it's due to the directing. The directing was phenomenal, the way that they were able to create that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also part of her acting that she just never breaks persona. And her character, very deeply complex in this one, as far as, she has mental illnesses and it's related to your main character, Cruella DeVille. Obviously, the big twist here, we're in the spoiler section. The big twist here being that Emma Thompson plays Cruella DeVille's mother.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of explains why Cruella DeVille is that crazy in 101 Dalmatians. And for me, that was a good little twist that they made in there. It wasn't necessarily out of the blue.
Right.
It was a little bit telegraphed, but in the end, it was a satisfying twist. How'd you feel about that twist?
Yeah, like I said, I saw it coming, definitely.
Yeah.
But definitely satisfied with it. And also to the point of Cruella's, not birth mother, but the woman who raised her, it explains a little bit more on why, she was sort of opposed to Cruella being herself, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was very, very interesting. And then getting to see too, even before that's, officially announced, the whole scenery and depiction of Cruella being the future and the Baroness, who Emma Thompson's character being the past.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that reminds me, the Baroness, and that reminds me of the party at the beginning of the film.
Mm-hmm.
My God, the costume work in this film is top notch.
Oh, yes.
Top notch. I mean, some of the best I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really fantastic. I was very, not surprised. It should be.
Well, yes. And I mean, this was another thing that was widely publicized. I had the advertisements and all the interviews all over my Instagram, just because I had searched it so many times leading up to it being released. Just hearing they had one of the teasers with the costume designer, and just how every day it was a new outfit that they made, and it was just truly incredible. And just these revelations she had, the designs for not just Cruella, who's obviously been depicted on page and on screen, but for this character, the Baroness, who's sort of larger than life, and her domain is really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely, and that brings us to some of our I guess we need to talk about our main character. Do you want to discuss Emma Stone a little bit?
I think Emma Stone does an excellent job. Once again, I think the best part of her role is you don't know when she is Cruella that she is Emma Stone.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it's not just the costume, the change of what I'm trying to remember. It's not Cruella. It's
Estella.
Estella. When she's Estella, she's Emma Stone. She's,
Yeah.
quirky Emma Stone. And it's as if it's another actor. The way she's able to change as as Cruella is truly impressive. Almost the guy in Split.
Oh yeah,
McAvoy, James
yeah.
McAvoy-esque, where you see him going, from his different personas in the film Split or in the film Glass.
Yeah.
I think, or the other great example is like you gave in the lead-in from Joker, Joaquin Phoenix.
It really drew throughout the entire film, not only just the style of the direction, but the like the takes that we get of up close shots of Cruella when she's Cruella, not Estella. How it kind of like. It reminded me of that first time where he puts the Joker makeup on and he talks with Robert De Niro on the talk show, and it feels like, okay, this guy is no longer this character behind the makeup anymore. He's embodying the Joker, and that's what she did with Cruella. It's an entire different persona,
right?
And that's what was so impressive about this performance for me from Emma Stone.
Yes, agreed, and it's truly impressive. I find it even more impressive, and I know we're going to disagree on this, than Joaquin Phoenix's performance, because to me that was my biggest problem with the film The Joker. Is the whole film he was the same person as far as I'm concerned. I seriously, if you told me that it was another actress playing Cruella DeVille compared to Estella, I would have believed you.
Yeah, and it's really, really cool to see her just. I guess it is. It's really a descent into madness.
Yes, without a doubt.
And that is what's so incredible. I love those kind of stories.
I think the most amazing thing, and I think she realizes this at the end of this film, is it's not a descent into madness. It's just an evolution from who she thought she was to who she actually is.
Yeah, she's truly becoming her true self.
Yes.
And great message. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And let's talk about some of the darkest parts of the film. Okay. Her mistreating her friends is obviously pretty sad to see. These two gentlemen that she's grown up with on the street, and then to see them start to view her as more of a villain and say, hey, why are you treating us like this?
Right.
That was one of the most interesting parts for me.
But here's what I'm going to put out, and why I say this is why it's more of a prequel and not necessarily just a dissension in a separate story, is because these characters are characters in 101 Dalmatians.
Yes.
I was unaware of that going in. I was not very familiar with 101 Dalmatians, but both these characters, so we're talking about Jasper and Horace, played by Joel Fry and Paul Walter Hauser, as well as her friend Darling, Anita, and the lawyer, Roger. Are all characters in Cruella in 101 Dalmatian, and it's sort of backstories for all of them because it stays true to it. I went and read more about 101 Dalmatians and rewatched clips, and I think it stays pretty true to form with them, which I loved about this film.
Great. I didn't get a chance to go back and look. I'm glad you did. That's awesome. Yeah, and there's a lot of there's like how do I explain that? I think you made a really great explanation of this, is when she's talking to the friend she's really more close to. Jasper, right. Thank you. So she's talking to Jasper, and sometimes he's like, I can't tell if you're kidding or not. Right. I don't know if you're being serious. And I don't know. That was pretty crazy. It's like she's saying, wouldn't those Dalmatians make a fantastic coat? Right. And he says, that's messed up. Like, don't say that.
Well, and I think that's another message from this film. And it was the same thing with Maleficent. That Disney likes to play on. It's the story of Cruella DeVille that we've come to know as an audience before this film came out is almost a propaganda-esque, what the world wanted you to see of Cruella DeVille. Of course, notably in the films, she wants to purchase the Dalmatians to make a coat. And she comes out in the Dalmatian-esque coat in this film, and we find out she never laid a hand on the Dalmatians, but it's just a villain for people to believe in. Similar to in Maleficent, we believe what the royal family wants you to tell, that she's a wicked witch, that she cursed the princess. Well, we find out in Maleficent that's not what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never seen either of those. Okay. So I'm glad you said that, though.
Yeah, worth a watch. Okay. Worth a watch. Definitely not on this level, but I give them both a 7 out of 10. Probably.
Okay, right on. Yeah. And I'm really glad you brought up that scene, because it's a negative for me in the film, but I completely understand why they didn't. It felt like a little bit of a cop-out that she didn't kill the Baroness's dogs there, that it turns out she didn't all along, because that reveal of her walking out and wearing that Dalmatian, coat, and I was like, whoa, they went really dark here. Like they did it. Like I was like, wow, that's really bold of them. And then they kind of backed off on it. It's like they were hitting the gas and then they kind of hit the brakes a little bit. They're like, whoa, whoa, this is still a Disney movie. And then I was like, oh man, I maybe it's just the older, guy in me, older viewer in me that wanted to see a little more boldness.
It also, I feel like, would be hard to, especially for this kind of film, to depict the murder of animals.
Of course, yeah. And
Disney or not.
Disney or not, yeah. And but yeah, so that's kind of like one of the negatives for me. And then let me talk about my other big negative.
I think we're gonna agree on this. Yeah.
The way the film ends.
Yes.
Okay. Not necessarily the actual ending itself with her getting the palace and finding herself and all that, but the way that she survives.
Ridiculous.
She if you guys haven't seen you're in the spoiler section. You've seen the film. She makes a parachute skirt.
Yes.
And she survives that way. And I was like, wow, this whole film has been very serious for the most part. Yes. And then you have this bombastic way that she survives falling off of a cliff.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have come up with anything else. They could have come up with that she had tied a rope to her ankle before. They could have come up with that, there was someone on the edge of the cliff holding her or something like that, or
I'm right there with you.
Number of things.
And there's even a quippy line with it at the end. You go, well, girls, this is why you always have to have a good skirt.
Yeah. Man, come on.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but I almost feel like they kind of wrote themselves into a corner on how they were going to be able to do it and just couldn't find a creative way to get her to survive. Yeah. So they Disneyfied it a little bit, but that's all right. I mean, all in all, yes, it was a little upsetting. Yes, it keeps it from being between great and amazing or incredible, but it doesn't detract enough away from the story that it hurts the film. And we needed Cruella de Vil to survive because it, like we said, this does eventually lead into, and we see this in the post-credit scene, 101 Dalmatians, the story.
Absolutely. And final note to talk about Cruella here is one thing behind the production we haven't talked about: the fantastic soundtrack.
Incredible. Yes. One of my favorite parts about this, and probably what makes this stand apart from any of the other live action Disney films. So this is not a musical.
No, not at all.
But its score, despite the time period, is, I guess it does go with the time. It's a 60s into 70s sort of evolution of rock and roll almost in the soundtrack.
It's your typical British rebellion, punk rebellion. I don't know what you would call it. There's a specific brand. I can't remember what it's called.
Is it like geek rock? No,
it's something. Gosh, I can't remember what that. It's a grunge.
No, grunge is the 90s. That's like
grunge is 90s. Yeah. No, there's something. There's a specific genre, but I can't remember it. But it's that 60s, 70s. Rebellious punk phase of rock and roll, and they fully use it to its advantage there. Probably my favorite sequence is the boots. The boots sequence that these boots can walk on. I like that one. And then of course at the end, ending on a very high note, the famous song is that, I want to say Rolling Stones. Am I wrong? The Devil song. The one at the very end where it is, let me introduce myself.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's Rolling Stones.
Is it the Rolling Stones? Okay, yeah.
That's Rolling Stones. It has to be. I feel like I'm right on that. Yeah. That's Rolling Stones, and I thought that was awesome because she's Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
And that was great. So any other ones you can remember that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, they did a Beatles almost punk version of a Beatles song. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but in the sequence where they're prepping for the the final sequence. I mean, like I said, I just great a great soundtrack altogether overall.
Really added a lot of style to the movie,
without a doubt,
and it kept it moving. Right, that's one thing that I'd say is probably the most impressive for me in this film, is that it's a long film. Remember, we walked out of the theater, we said, "Wow, that was over 2 hours."
Right. Yeah.
And you know what? It didn't feel that long.
I was very surprised when we walked out of the theater. We didn't realize it was over 2 hours. We looked down at our clocks and said, "Wow, we were in there for with trailers 2.5, 2:45." But yeah, it didn't feel like that. And that's, I think, one of the big ways to realize if you really enjoyed a film. You know, they say time flies when you're having fun. Well, we had fun with this film. We enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And the director, what his name's Craig.
Yeah, Craig Gillespie.
Craig Gillespie did a great job with the pacing of this film.
Yep.
This one moves, guys. So you won't fall asleep in this one, I guarantee it. Let's wrap up here at the end. One more reminder, our score is 8 out of 10 for both of us.
Well, hold on. There's one more thing I want to talk about. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to jump into the post-credit scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this was a film that had a post-credit scene. Estella, Cruella, whoever it is, sends a Dalmatian each to her friends, Anita and the lawyer, Roger. Now, this is another one that plays right into a sequel, live action 101 Dalmatians. Now, for those of you who aren't 101 Dalmatians fans, Anita and Roger end up getting married.
Yes.
And having the family of Dalmatians
that's the 101
that Cruella wants to, that Cruella is the antagonist in. And what sort of plants the seeds of that is everyone making fun of Cruella.
Yes.
Including Roger, a lawyer turned piano player who we see in this film, consistent, creating the Cruella de Vil song. And we see that when he has his Dalmatian playing that song on the piano.
Yeah.
And it's haunting as it pans back and you see, the cityscape of London.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed this. This was, not something to reveal much more besides that we're sticking with the story, but I think it was a great stylistic choice. I love the cinematography of it. And I love how haunting it is. You lose all sound except for him just, fiddling with the piano and singing to himself. And I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked it.
I wanted to talk about that as the sort of the cherry on top of the movie, something that redeemed it a little bit for me after I was disappointed with the cliff scene.
The cliff scene. Yeah. Now the reason why I say this one doesn't really lead into it is because maybe you said you just recently watched clips from 101 Dalmatians, but I don't think that Cruella was that famous from before. Like this whole backstory is completely new and everything. Like
the backstory is 100% new.
On the run from the police, is that part of a 101 Dalmatians?
No, she's just a very, which she is, a very wealthy, former friend of Anita's from school is how she's described.
It's just very vague. Okay, so that's why I mean it's like it's not necessarily right.
No, I mean, but prequels will do that. We talked about a couple of weeks ago how we did with Planet of the Apes. It doesn't 100% lead into the original films, but that's why they made the films before.
Close enough.
Yes, I do like that they paid homage to the regular or to the original film rather than just creating a brand new backstory for Cruella de Vil. They built on other characters that were in the original.
But I also like they didn't end this one by just like saying, okay, now 101 Dalmatians starts.
Okay.
I like that. There's still that little gap. And let's end on that note that they greenlit this for another sequel.
Yes.
And I just wondering, do you think that they're going to be able to pull it off a second time? Is there enough story there?
I think there is. And if they let Craig Gillespie on this second project as well, I think they're going to come out with another great project. Maybe not something as good as this one. Sequels don't often tend to be better than their original films. Of course, there are a few out there. We've talked about them.
Yeah.
But I think they'll do a good job with it if they let Gillespie at the helm of that one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so as well. I'm interested. There was, they were asking Emma Thompson and Emma Stone in some interviews. I read this on Twitter. They were saying, what would you want to see in a Cruella sequel? And they were saying, how about we get, she played her in a Cruella de Vil in the original live action 101 Dalmatians.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
What's her name? I think it wasn't Meryl Streep, was it? You can look it up real quick. But they're saying we could do kind of a Godfather 2-esque where she plays older Cruella and Emma Stone plays the Cruella we're familiar with. And that would be kind of interesting because then you could see kind of the fall with the older Cruella.
Glenn Close.
Glenn Close, yes. So Glenn Close would be playing older Cruella. Emma Stone would be playing young Cruella. And you could see young Cruella lead right into 101 Dalmatians. Older Cruella, see her downfall at the end. Kind of like the illusion there would be Michael Corleone versus Vito Corleone. Right. That would be kind of interesting. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and that would be interesting. I would definitely be interested in that. I'm intrigued as well to see, if they do a sequel, if Emma Thompson will be in it and what role she'll play now behind bars, and it'll be interesting. I'm really excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah. So I'm excited for a sequel. Looking forward to it. We'll be there after this one. Next on the show, what will we be discussing, Ryan?
Well, we have Loki, of course, coming out this week. I mean, I'll let you make the decision on this one, Dom. But it'll either, our first episode will be a solo episode with Dom, or we can hold and do 2 episodes.
Is it coming
together
out Wednesday?
Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So that's just 48 hours from now.
Yeah.
So I will be out of town for the next couple of weeks, and then you'll be out of town. So we'll see if we can do it maybe
I think we
over
should
Zoom or.
Yeah, I think we should do it over Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll probably end up doing it over Zoom. So that's the plan. We'll probably do episodes 1 and 2 together.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And that'll be that.
Yep. So we have Loki coming out, which we're really excited about. A lot more films coming out that we're going to be hitting theaters and or HBO Max or other streaming services soon. In the Heights comes out in I believe this week, maybe next week. I think it's this week.
Sometime soon.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain it's in the next 10 days or so. So In the Heights, of course, Black Widow as well. When that hit theaters, we'll be there. Lots of films coming. Of course, we're in summer blockbuster season, right in the heart of it. We're really excited about that. And we're going back to the theaters or watching on our streaming services and bringing you guys great content.
Absolutely. So we'll all see you guys on the next episode of Top of the List. Did you already say like, comment, subscribe? Okay.
You go ahead.
Okay, everybody, like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. We'll be coming out with more content soon. Follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts as well. You know where to find us by now. Check down in the description if you want to follow us on social media. With that said, we hope you guys enjoy a little bit. We'll probably have a little bit of a hiatus. And then we'll see you guys all on the following Wednesday. So we'll see you guys next time for our Loki review. Have a great week, everybody.
Later, guys.
Later.